My name is Jessica Molina. I'm a lettering artist, illustrator, and designer. And as I said before, I'm based in Dallas, Texas. I have been running my business since 2019. I started by running it on the side of a full-time design job. So I was a graphic designer for a little over 10 years. And so I started running my business on the side. Lettering kind of started as a side hobby, and then I realized I was really good at it. And it was something I really wanted to do, started my business on the side. And that's when I started working with Logan as a creative business coach. I really wanted to level up and leave my day job and do this full time. And so with his help and hard work and circumstances being right and everything, I was finally able to do that. So I just celebrated my 1-year anniversary of leaving my full-time job in August. Woo! There's been lots of ups and downs, lots of lessons learned, but honestly, it's one of the best things I've ever done in my life. I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's been a wild ride, and Logan has been there for a lot of that ride. So we really wanted to offer you guys some valuable insights, especially on Instagram, because that's such a big way to market yourself and your business. And it's actually really where I got my start, and a lot of my biggest clients have found me through there. So it's still a valuable tool. Obviously, it's going through a lot of changes, and there's been a lot of kind of ups and downs with Instagram, but we want to talk about how it's still a valuable platform and how you can use it to attract your dream clients, just like I have, and just like I continue to do to this day. So I'm going to pass it over to Logan so he can introduce himself in case you don't know him. Hey, Logan.
Ooh, hey Jess, hey everyone, so good to see you all. Fantastic. Honestly, I'm so excited that we get to do this together. Jess, like it's just so great to be able to really share expertise as well. So welcome everybody that's here. I just put in the chat as well, if you can have your video on, that's amazing, so we can see you, right? So if you can't, if you're eating lunch, something like that, totally fine as well. But where possible, have that video on, which is awesome. Then we can see everyone's lovely faces. So I'm going to give a brief background to myself. I'm going to keep it really brief because I want to also jump into the session that we're going to run around growing your business through Instagram. So look, my thing I often first say is my funny accent, right? You're probably like, huh, he's in Austin, but I don't think that's a Texan accent there.
No.
So most people guess firstly that I'm either from New Zealand, England, or maybe Australia, but I am actually from New Zealand. So there we go. I do run my business fully remotely. So I'm a creative business coach, and I do tend to travel between the US, Europe, and occasionally New Zealand. So I usually try and spend a month or two in each location and city. So my background is that I had my own creative business for quite a long time. I had my own creative business for actually 11 years. Okay, now that was a time that really evolved, and I grew and I learned a lot. During that time, I also did a business master's as well. All right, so during that time, I learned a business master's about creative business, which was really important. So now, what my background these days is that I focus on helping creative business owners, specifically visual creative business owners, to grow their business. Right. So this is something that I'm obviously very passionate about, and I love helping people to grow. Right. And I'm looking in the group here, and there's actually a lot of my clients here as well, which is so good. So good to see you all here as well. And so exciting that we're able to really bring Jess on board here and run a session together too. So now, we're going to be diving right into Instagram and how to really use that as a tool to grow your business. The first thing I'm going to share, and I'm going to mention it again at the end, is that I have decided that we're going to give away some freebie coaching sessions. Some of you might have seen that in the email as well. So to do that, I'm just going to throw it in the link here in the chat. That link there is to a survey form that you need to fill out to basically enter to be in for one of those freebie calls. All right, so I'm going to basically pick 5 people. There are 5 free 30-minute sessions that I'll be giving out to 5 people basically, which is cool. So I'm really excited that we can do that. I love connecting with people. I know there's a couple of people in here already that I've already had some great conversations with at times as well. So really encouraging you to do that. And it's something we'll post again at the end. We'll also put the link if you're watching the recording, so you've got that there to basically apply for as well. All right, should we jump into it, Jessica? What do you reckon?
Yes, let's do it. I'm so excited.
Everyone's amping at the bit, like, okay, I need to hear. All right, so
yeah,
we're going to basically dive into 5 key things around this. Now, is Instagram specifically something that we could talk about all day? Yes, me and Jessica talk about it probably all week. We could run hours and hours of workshops around this. So what we decided to do was really get focused around 5 really important things that we're talking about at the moment that are really relevant, and it's something that people within Jessica's community, also my own communities, are really struggling with as well, right? And some of the the clients in this room here, they'll be like, yep, we're struggling with this stuff as well. So first thing I'm going to talk about is this idea that platforms evolve. All right, platforms change, and boy, that is frustrating. So right now we're seeing Instagram's going through some changes. Now, I've been in business for quite a long time. I've had various businesses, and I'll be honest, Instagram has always been changing, right? Actually, it's been changing again and again and again. Now, yes, there's times where there's not a lot of change, but then there's a big change. So when that conversation around, oh, it's changing, it's not the same as it was, it's like that every year, right? So the first thing we'll really acknowledge and talk about is, hey, platforms are going to evolve. And this isn't just Instagram, this is actually all platforms, all social media platforms will evolve. Also, all types of web apps and different forms of software that we'll use, they evolve, they change. Okay, now, do they always change for the better for us specifically? Not always. All right, now, there's kind of 2 roads we can go down. Road number 1 is that we can have a really good moan about it. And I think we probably should anyway, right? I think everyone should do that. Have a moan, get annoyed, all of that. But what I sometimes see is people get really stuck down there and they're just always complaining, always talking about it, and they're not taking action around their business in this area. They're just like, it's just not working, and I don't know, I've tried everything, Actually, the second road is that you need to evolve with the platform. Okay, as frustrating as that can be, when you're in business, you need to evolve with the tools as well. Now, I think it's sometimes a bit of a, oh, okay, we need to hear this from Logan, from Jessica, is saying, hey, like these are free tools. Let's just remember that. Okay, sometimes we're like, oh, but I deserve this, I have this. It's like, no, like these are free tools. Yes, you can pay for ads and look at that, but like we are getting to promote and advertise our businesses for free using these amazing platforms. And I think it's important for us to remember that, because we can forget that social media, even 20 years ago, basically didn't exist. And if you wanted to grow and market your business, you had to spend money on like radio ads. Remember radio ads and newspaper ads and all of those things? Now you actually have these amazing tools that you can effectively market for free. However, they do evolve, they do change, and they are businesses themselves. They're trying to work out how to make money too, right? And sometimes we forget that. We're like, oh, Instagram, how dare you? It's like, how dare you try and make money? Well, yes, maybe we can go down the line of looking at, whether they're making too much money, all of that, but that's kind of irrelevant. It's like, in the end, they're just trying to grow a business as well. Therefore, our job is we need to lean into those changes. So the biggest thing I'll share around that is that when Instagram changes, when it updates, when it releases new features, you've got to be on the ball around that. All right. Now, several things there is, if you use new features, Instagram and other platforms, they will give you a boost of engagement. The algorithm will recognize you, right? The people who started using Reels when Reels were first released were like getting huge amounts of engagement, okay? Because these platforms want you to try these things. They want you to use these things. So they're incentivizing you to, right? So anytime there's a new feature, there's usually a boost associated with it as well if you try it out. Yes, new features are rolled out at different times at different parts of the world, but using new features is really, really important. So they're the key things I really wanted to mention around that. We're going to go deeper in some other areas, but when new features come out, use them, adapt, learn. Now, the great thing is we have the internet. There is so much information about how to use the new features, what new features are coming out, right? There's always sorts of things. And honestly, Reels, we're going to talk more about Reels. Reels is still a relatively new feature, right? What's happening, we're seeing, is that actually Instagram is competing with TikTok. That's why, part of the reason why Reels are getting a lot of engagement as well. Jess, did you want to add some things to sort of what we've talked about here around the evolving platforms?
Yeah, I just want to say this is a major, this might seem like a duh kind of thing to say, but this is a major mindset thing that I think a lot of people have, like exactly like you said, like part 1, just being annoyed about it. And I think everyone has every right to be annoyed, upset, frustrated. Like I get that, but I think the important thing is to have your moment and then move on. Okay. Like if you want to run a successful business, and if you want Instagram to be an integral part of that business, or at least any part of that business, then you kind of just need to get with the program. So that may be hard to hear, but I think Logan's giving solid advice. If you see new features come out, absolutely jump on the bandwagon. I also highly recommend, if you're not already, following social media marketers, because they will tell you what the trends are. They will tell you what the new features are. And, you know, if you don't have anyone that you follow, DM me and I will give you plenty of suggestions of people to follow. And you can, you know, get a lot out of what they're sharing without you having to do a lot of research on your own. Also, like social platforms like, like scheduling platforms like Later, Planoly, they will share their stuff too. They need to be on top of it just as much as you do. They're perfect accounts to share. So if you don't have any accounts to share, just DM me and I'll give you a couple of suggestions. So yeah.
I love that. That's so powerful and so generous of you to be able to share these as well, Jess, too. So look, I just before we move on to that next one, I just like, who's frustrated about the fact that they need to evolve and change, right? Give us a wave. Give us a wave if you're a bit kind of annoyed. I see a couple of tentative waves there, right? Like it is, we hear you. Like it is frustrating, and like I find it hard as well, right, to keep up with these changes. Right now, we've got to just do our best. I'm not saying you need to be a superstar on top of every little minor change. You need to put some energy into this, though, right? And I'm going to talk about later in the session, we're going to kind of dive into the difference between what we call, you know, Instagram as a primary marketing tool and a secondary marketing tool, or as a core strategy or supporting strategy. We're going to talk about the difference a little bit more, because for some of you, if Instagram is a core marketing tool, you need to lean right into what we're saying here. Others, maybe it's a bit less important, right? So we'll talk about the difference within that as well. Cool. All right. So what we're going to jump into next is really get talking about Reels, right? Okay. Now, who here uses Reels? Who here posts Reels? Give us a wave. You post Reels at the moment, right? Give us a wave if you're like, I hate doing Reels, Logan. Oh my goodness, why do we have to do them? This is super frustrating, right? So we've got a bit of a mix. We've got some people in there. They're like, yeah, I'm doing it. Yeah, I hate doing it. You know, all of those things there. And like the reality check here is that Reels are where Instagram has gone, is going, will continue to go. Now, there's several reasons for that. Is because it's what people, firstly, it's what they're engaging with, it's what they're watching, right? Instagram, to an extent, is kind of giving the people what they want. Now, you might say, well, yes, but I know some people who hate watching Reels and all of that. I totally get it. But on average, what we're seeing is that most people are engaging with Reels. And if you think about your own social media consumption, are you someone that, do you go through Reels? Right? I'm talking to a lot of people that are like, yeah, I mean, I mostly watch Reels. They're the things that get my attention. Yes, I notice the other things as well, but it's important to kind of reflect on how you use social media for your own consumption versus how you're using it for your business as well. So as frustrating as it can be to hear, is that Reels is really the way to build your audience, grow your Instagram. Now, do you have to do Reels? No, you don't have to. You just need to be aware that if you are using Instagram as a core strategy that we'll talk about more, then Reels need to be part of that. Right? I've got some clients that don't do Reels, they just do some posts, and that's okay, but it's because they've got other marketing strategies to grow their business. Okay, there's a big difference between that. Once again, we'll dive into that more. Okay, so several things here once again is that there is tons of information online, tons of accounts to give you ideas around Reels. What you can be posting, you can be doing. There is lots of ways that you can do Reels. What we're generally seeing is that shorter Reels are getting higher engagement, right? So those Reels that are 5 to 15 seconds are getting a lot more engagement. Does that mean you shouldn't do Reels that are longer? No, like you can totally do them still, but it's just something to be mindful of. If you want all of those extra boosts as you go through, then you can follow some of those trends. The other thing that you can think about is music, right? So trending audio, right? You hear about people talking about trending audio, and there's even accounts that will share trending audio. Here's the trending audio to think about. Once again, it may give you a boost. Now, some people get panicky about this because they get overwhelmed. They're like, oh, so I've got to track trending audio. I've got to think about the timing of these. I've got to think about this here. How do I write it in? How do I record it? There's a lot to think about. Do you need to think about all of those elements? No. I kind of view it as like, cool, you've got your basic elements. If you're doing Reels at all, you're going to get more engagement. Now, if you do Reels and are thinking about trending audio, you might get 10% more engagement, right? If you get Reels and you're also thinking about the timing, you might get another 10% engagement. Once again, I'm generalizing here because of the percentage engagement for some trending tracks might be a lot more. It might be hundreds of percentage of bonus points, but you don't have to think about trending music to be successful on Instagram. You don't have to just do those 5-second videos. And, I sometimes say to clients, look, you also don't have to be dancing on Instagram like people are doing on TikTok, right? You can, if you want to, that's fine, that's cool. You can actually be you, okay? That's the key thing around this. And sometimes you've got to get creative around that. And something I'm really encouraging a lot of my clients around is like, how do we bring you into your brand? Okay, how do we show that, you know, you are your business? People trust people. People build businesses with people. People work for people. It's an important thing to remember. So how do we bring you into your brand? Now, does that need to be you there talking to camera, looking into the screen, all that? No, it doesn't necessarily have to be, right? Me as a coach, there should be some content on there where I'm talking, because that's what I do. I talk, I'm working with people. Okay, but for you, that could look like shots where you're working on your artwork. It could be your hand is involved in the reel, right? It could be an over the shoulder shot. It could be you holding up some of your artwork, right? There's lots of different creative ways that you can do this. Sometimes it's just reminding you to bring you into your brand as well. Jess, did you want to add some things to this sort of topic around reels?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to bring in my strategy for creating reels. Now, I'm not someone who churns out a whole bunch of them. I actually kind of go through like ebbs and flows. So I'll churn out maybe like a month of reels, and then I'll take a break because I get kind of burned out from doing video, because I like doing video, but it's very time consuming and it can be very like tedious at times to do the editing. And so I will do like an ebb and flow. And so my general strategy that I recommend is batch working. So rather than, let's say you have one reel idea, you're like, I have an idea for a reel. So you're going to set up for it, shoot it, edit it, write your caption, and post it. Okay, you could do that, or you can batch work, which is how I work. I will take some time, maybe day one, let's say, to brainstorm ideas. And it will just be a whole list of ideas of reels I can do. Day two, I'll start shooting reels. Maybe I will aim to shoot like, between 2 to 6 reels in a day or something, depending on how long or short they are. Then I will batch work editing. So I will edit all at once. Then I will batch work writing captions and coming up with hashtags. Then I use a scheduling platform called Later, and I will actually schedule them out so that when it comes, I'm literally just posting. I'm not thinking about the caption and trying to come up with it at the last second. So this is how I recommend doing reels. If it's something that you really want to get on board with, you're like, okay, I know I need to do them, but I need a good strategy. Batch working is my #1 strategy for doing reels. I think that you just churn out a lot better stuff that way. And I think you churn out more of it as well. And then that way, the more you churn out, the more you can see what's working and what's not working. And I also want to add just really quickly, the thing about reels is also the reach. Like when I look at my insights, my reach has shifted from not so much the people that are already following me, but I'm getting a lot more new eyes on my work. So when you're creating reels, try not to just think about the audience you already have. Try to think about the audience you're trying to attract. So in this webinar, we're talking about attracting your dream client. Talk to your dream client in your reels, because it's more likely that they are now seeing your content when they didn't see it before, if they weren't already following you.
I love that. So powerful. And I think I'll add one or two more things there, which is, it is hard. If you've never done reels before, your first reels are not going to be very good. And that's okay. All right. That is okay, because you're going to get better. Right. I talk to my clients, they're all going to be laughing here with their ears. Imperfect action, team, right? Imperfect action. It's something that we really need to think about. Is you're going to first reels you're going to create. First ones I ever made were like rubbish. Right? I don't really know what I was doing. And honestly, it's something that evolves, and you get better through taking action. They will disappear down your feed. You could archive them eventually if you want to, right? Like the key here is having a go at it, having a go at reels, giving it a go. Now, something that Christina did mention there as well is, look, you'll notice that things will change, right? So things will change in terms of the levels of engagement, right? So maybe reels are dropping sometimes. That's going to happen. It's going to go like this. Okay, now what sometimes happens is I see people seeing the drop of engagement and they're like, oh, there's no point anymore doing this. So therefore they just stop posting, and then 2 months later, they're like, oh, I should get back into posting again. That whole time, Instagram is, you're losing the opportunity to connect with people, connect with your audience, and Instagram is not going to reward you. She's going to penalize you for just not engaging with the platform. Okay, so it's just something to be mindful of as you work through, is that we're going to see this. Now, what you want to do is just keep consistent with your work, right? Keep consistently posting, keep consistently moving forward. We totally hear you. It's a roller coaster. It's an emotional roller coaster trying to use Instagram. It's an emotional roller coaster growing a business,
Yeah.
I was talking to a client about this morning, right? When you think about the calls that we had, Jessica, like it was an emotional roller coaster, like when you were leaving
Yeah.
your job, right?
Yeah. It was like therapy. And that's part of it. And Instagram is part of that for better or worse, but like that's just running a business. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's challenging. We totally hear you. Yeah, yeah. You want to
Yeah,
add something?
really quick. Yeah, I just want to answer Christine's message. So Christine asked in the chat, do you notice a difference in reach depending on the time of day you post a reel? Kind of, yes, but I wouldn't worry about it honestly that much. It's probably a negligible difference, honestly. I wouldn't worry about it, especially if you're starting out. Don't even just post when you can. Don't worry about that.
100%. It's such good advice. Otherwise, you're like, oh, I missed the key time that they say it's a bit better to post. I'll post tomorrow, and then I won't do as many posts, or I'll post next week. Right? It's like, no, just get it done.
Just post it.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, let's keep moving through these things here. So, look, if you do have questions as we go like that, feel free to just fire them straight into the chat, just like Christina did. Right? So you can just literally just in there, and I see we've got Jess as well, and we'll address them when we can. Or what we'll do is we'll answer them at the end. We're also going to hopefully have a bit of Q&A time at the end as well, if you've got other questions. But honestly, just fire them into the chat as we go, and we'll address them now, if not later. Cool. Next thing we're going to talk about is using the DMs, the direct messages. This is a tool that you can use on Instagram that we sometimes forget about. Now, when I think about growing my business through using the DMs, initially what goes through my mind is all those spam messages we all get, right? Who gets some weird spammy messages in their Instagram, right? Right? Ugh. You know, it goes in your like other inbox sometimes, and it's like, hey, do you want to grow your Instagram following by 5,000 people in the next 20 days? I'm like, yeah, that sounds great, but I don't think I'm going to work with you to do that, because, you know, this is something we avoid. So first of all, delete those messages. It is spam. Just ignore it. Don't worry about it. Right? You're going to get that. And actually, as you grow your Instagram, you're just going to get more of them. Those of you that have some of those bigger followers, you'll be getting a lot of them. I totally hear that. However, can it be a good way to engage with potential clients? Absolutely. You just don't want to be seen as spam. Okay. So in my business, we engage with people through the DMs quite a lot. Okay. Now, first of all, generally you would want to engage with people that are your followers first. All right. So I sometimes see people kind of doing more the cold outreach strategy with Instagram, which is where you're literally direct messaging people that you're not following, they're not following you. The problem with that is it'll go in their other inbox and they're going to be like, who is this random person? Now, can it work? Yes, just like cold emailing can totally work. But first of all, focus on who your followers are. Right. So actually you can engage with them first. Okay. And even better is you can engage with people that have been engaging with your content recently. Okay. Now, first thing I say around using the DMs to build your business, grow your business, find potential leads is that approach with building a connection first. Do not jump into people's DMs and say, hey, do you want to work with me? Hey, I'm looking for clients. Hey, do you want to, just like those spammy messages we get. Right. So when I DM people, do you think I jump in there and say, hey, do you want to work with a creative business coach? This is my fees. No, like people are going to be like, you're just another spam. Actually, I go in because I want to build a connection with someone. And that's what I want to do. That's how my coaching is as well. I want to build connections and relationships with the people I'm working with. Right. So go in first and just have a conversation. Right. Get to understand where they're at. What are their needs? I have a lot of discussions with people saying, hey, look, I've been looking through your work. I really love where it's at. Right. What are the challenges? What are the things that you're finding hard? Sometimes it's even before that. I even say, hey, like, it'd be interesting. Like, where are you based? What are you focusing on? What are you doing? Right. It's creating a conversation. Now, the other thing I'll mention around DMs is that people are going to ignore them. And that's okay. Right. If you're using strategy around building your business through the DMs, through connecting with people that way, that could lead to being a potential client, some of them are going to ignore you. And that is totally okay. Right. It doesn't mean they hate you. Doesn't mean that they are going to now block you. Some people are just busy and they get lots of messages in the DMs, or they're just not interested, and that's okay as well. I've had people that I've messaged like a year ago, had a brief conversation with, and then they kind of didn't continue the conversation on, and that's okay. But then suddenly we reopened that conversation up again this week because they've been reminded about me. They saw some of my content. They went, oh, I think I had a message with that person, and we continue that conversation. Okay, so what we're sharing here is that using direct messages to engage with people personally can be a very, very powerful way to build your business, because your business is based on people. Once again, know, like, and trust. My clients hear this a lot, right? We've got to build our business by getting people to know, like, and trust us. right? How do they get to know us? Maybe through Instagram. They connect with us through Instagram, and they see our content. But how do they get to maybe like us? Yeah, through Instagram. Maybe it's about having a conversation, bringing that personal element in. Also, the trust element can be built that way as well. Do you have anything else you want to add in this part, Jess, as we move through?
Yes, I want to talk about this being the long game. So what Logan's talking about, because I want to bring it all back to attracting your dream clients. This is not about DMing the art director of your favorite brand and trying to make this ingenuous connection just so that they know who you are. This is about the long game. You never know who needs work, or you never know who is good to know. So I will give you an example. I started, if you're a lettering artist, you know who Lauren Hom is, or if you're a designer of any kind, she's pretty famous, right? Lauren Hom and I started DMing when she was still, I wouldn't say she was unknown, but she was still building traction. I was just starting in lettering. We started communicating through DMs, through comments. Now she's a really good acquaintance of mine. If I reach out to her, she knows who I am. It's not like I'm a stranger to her. She has passed me work before that she couldn't take on. You never know who can help you out or who would be good to know in the industry. And it's also just great to help you build your community and feel like there's somebody you know. I have asked her questions about pricing. I've asked her questions about clients because she knows, she's been there. And because we know each other and I built that connection with her, it's not weird for me to DM her and ask her a question like that. So what we're talking about, while this may not land you your dream client right here and now, it may eventually lead to that. You just never know who is in touch with who. You never know who's going to have work for you, or who may be too busy with their work and want to pass this on to, oh, I remember that person because we DM each other every once in a while on Instagram. You never know. So this is about that. So don't think, this isn't a strategy for like, right now I'm going to work with my dream client. This is more about building that community like Logan was talking about.
Yeah, and Carolyn's mentioned the long game. It's really powerful insight, and one I've seen in my own life, right? So it is something where like this long game approach can really help you, which is hard, right? Because a lot of you are like, long game, great, but like I would love a client this week, next month, right? We totally get that, but the more you do now, that's going to help your business in the coming years as well. Now, sometimes when we say long game, it might not be that long. It could be months, it could be years. Okay, but like I've had people that I've connected with on Instagram like 2-3 years ago, and now they've reached out to me or we've connected and we end up working together. But at that point, we have that conversation when they're really ready, maybe for some coaching. They're like, oh, I've been seeing your stuff for years at this point, right? That's really common. Okay, so once again, different business model. I'm talking about the coaching strategy, but there's still a lot of relevant things within that as well. The other thing, we'll just jump into a couple of the questions around here, and Jess might have some extra thoughts too. So hashtags still beneficial. So yes, they are still beneficial. Do you have to do them? No. All right, like, so sometimes people get really like stuck and like, oh my goodness, I'm not sure what hashtags to do, so I'll do that post tomorrow, another day I won't do it. You don't have to put hashtags in there. We have seen that hashtags are not as important as they used to be, right? So we're seeing a change. Once again, use them where you can, and Jess might have some extra thoughts on that. Did you want to add some things around hashtags?
Yes, my research, so in case you haven't realized, I actually love social media marketing. It's just like something that I totally nerd out about. So I will like it be in this world. So my research on hashtags as of right now, rather than, I think before the use of them was kind of like being able to find things through them. I think Instagram has shifted to using them to categorize things, your posts. So if you are using them right now, they are still beneficial, but I would think of them more as categorizing your post. So if you post an inspirational quote with a picture of a sunset, you might want to use hashtags sunset, beach, inspirational, motivational, etc. Basically, like, how would you categorize this post if you were going to put it on a shelf in a library? Like, what sections would you put it in? Maybe it belongs in a couple sections. That's what I have seen in my research of how hashtags are used now. So yes, they are still beneficial. They're just used slightly differently. Totally agree with Logan, though. Do not get hung up on it. Take literally 30 seconds to think of your hashtags. If you can't think of any more, don't worry about it. The amount of like reach you're going to get out of them is probably negligible for that extra like 30 minutes you spent thinking about it. So it's better to just post, without thinking of like having the perfect hashtag strategy.
It's something that, like, honestly, a lot of my clients struggle with is sometimes it's just doing the work, just doing the posts, just getting things on there. So sometimes what we see is if you try and consider all of these little things, the problem is you won't take action in the first place. Right. So it's kind of like, well, is it better to include hashtags? Well, yes, but if it takes, as Jessica said, like if it takes you 30 minutes or even 10 minutes to figure that part out, that's just wasted time that you're way better investing in other ways. Okay, because we're all, wait, give us a wave if you're like tight for time. You're running out of time. The days just disappear during the week. You don't get the week, right? It's tough. Every single person I talk to, every person I work with, when I'm like, well, tell me about the key challenges in your business, they're like, time. There is not enough time in the day, right? That's a really common thing to come up with. So sometimes it's going, okay, well, how are we spending that time? Okay, should we be spending an hour to make one reel? Probably not, right? That's a really long amount of time. Now, if you have a massive Instagram following, maybe, because there might be a lot of value in that reel. Okay, so once again, this might depend on where you're at, but even then, an hour is a long time. I think if you've built a big following, you've probably also got quite good at making reels quite quickly, right? So these things obviously come hand in hand as well. Cool. We're going to keep moving through, and then we'll try to jump into some more questions in the messages as well. Okay. Next 2 points, right? Number 4 and 5 that I'm going to talk about. So number 1 I talked about was platforms evolving. Number 2, reels. Number 3, the DMs. Number 4 and 5, I'm going to talk about core strategy versus supporting strategy. Okay, now this is something that my own clients will learn more about if they haven't already, or know exactly what I'm talking about. There is a difference here between using Instagram or social media specifically as the core marketing tool, or using it as what we call a supporting strategy. Okay, so what we need to do in our businesses is really get to know what is the best way to market our business for us. Okay, now the best way probably isn't going to look like all the ways, right? And I see this. I see people like, oh, cool, I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this. I've got like 5 social media accounts and I'm trying to post on them all. I'm like overwhelmed, and also I'm trying to do cold emailing, and I'm trying to network, and I'm trying to build partnerships. You're trying to do too many things. You're like, a lot of people here are like a one-person band, right? Like it's you. Right? And that's really hard. So instead, what we do is we get really focused and we say, hey, for you, what is the best way to build your business and the best way to market your business? And for most people, there's one core way to really focus 80% of their energy when it comes to marketing. Now, does this say that you shouldn't do the other things? No, but it's about those things supporting what you're doing. And I'm going to give some really specific examples around core strategy. Now, first of all, if Instagram specifically is like, this is the way that I find new clients. I've found lots of clients here in the past. It works really well. I love it as a platform. I have built a following. I'm continuing to build a following. Instagram can be a great core marketing strategy. And I've got multiple clients who it is their core marketing strategy. Okay, and it's really powerful. If that is you, then it means, or you want it to be you want to lean into Instagram, it means you need to use everything we're talking about. It means that you need to be right up with the latest trends. It means that you need to be following the accounts that Jess is talking about, right? Understanding learning about trending audio. It means that you have to do reels, right? There's no one that I know that is like, oh yeah, Instagram's my core marketing strategy, but I'm not doing reels. It's like, well, you kind of have to. And if you're like, no, I want it to be my core strategy, but I'm not willing to do reels, well, you've got 2 options. Either you've got to figure out how to do reels, or you've got to have another strategy, core marketing strategy instead. Okay, so it can be a bit of a wake up call for some people, because they might be like, no, I'm just using Instagram as a marketing tool. Now, Jess will definitely share some more thoughts around this. Instagram is an amazing marketing tool. It totally is. You can do so much with it as a core strategy. Is it for everyone? No. Right? And I'm sure there's people in here, I can see some clients in here that I'm like, yeah, I know it's not your core strategy. I'm going to talk next about the supporting strategy side of that, but let's keep going on with the core strategy. Jess, do you want to share some more thoughts around using Instagram as a real core strategy to market?
Yeah, not really. I think you wrapped it up. I mean, again, this is a mindset thing. If this is important to you for your business, sometimes a few days you got to suck it up, buttercup, and just do what you're going to do. Now, obviously, look, if you get into this and you're like, I freaking hate this, like, I really, really hate Instagram, then maybe don't use it. Like, don't, part of building your business is being able to do what you want to do, as much as you can. And if you're working on something and you really, really, really hate it, maybe you just need to reevaluate. But I will say, as a visual artist, as a lettering artist and illustrator, I will say that what I have heard from art directors in the business, they are still using Instagram, even though it's gone through all these changes. What I'm hearing is they are still using Instagram to find creatives as probably the #1 platform. So I highly recommend it. However, if you absolutely hate it, you absolutely hate videos, you absolutely hate everything Instagram stands for, don't do something you hate just because, we're telling you to. Like, it's your business, make your decision, but it is something that I highly recommend as a creative and a visual creative at that.
I love it. Such a great perspective. And I think, the key there is if you really decide not to use it or not to use it much, that does mean, however, you have to figure out what the other thing you're going to do is. Right. And I'm going to give some thoughts briefly around this stuff, but like the other thing might need to be cold emailing or networking. All right. Connecting with people in person, relationship building, partnerships. Right. And if you're like, oh, none of that stuff sounds very good, Instagram actually sounds okay now. Well, maybe Instagram is the strategy to use, right? So it's just, some people go, oh no, I don't like any of that stuff. It's like, well, you need to figure it out, like, because otherwise you're not going to have a business, and this is just a hobby. There's nothing wrong with the stuff that we're all doing being a hobby. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to actually build a business, then one of the things you do need to do is you need to figure out the marketing stuff, and you need to figure out what is the core piece of that strategy. Okay, so what I'm going to share next is really this idea of using Instagram as what we call a supporting strategy. Okay, so what a supporting strategy means is it's not the core thing that you do to market and promote your business. It's something that supports the core thing. Okay, now, if it is a supporting strategy, it means you don't have to do as much, right? You probably don't need to be geeking out about trending audio and hashtags as much. Should you be thinking about them? Yeah, you still can, totally, right? And I'm going to give a specific example around my business around this. Okay, now the core way I build my business, once again, I'm in a coaching business for visual creatives. The core way I build it is through partnerships and relationships. Okay, so actually what I do is I connect up with awesome people who are probably going to refer me business. Okay, that's one of the ways that I build my business. Now, does that mean that I therefore don't do any Instagram posting? Absolutely not. It means I do. Absolutely. But do I need to post every day? Do I need to be going hardcore into reels? No, I don't need to be. I just need to make sure that I'm posting enough that if someone finds me through someone else and they get referred or recommended, then they're probably going to come to my Instagram page. And if I haven't posted on there in a month, they're going to be like, don't know if this is the right person here. All right, so it just really changes the volume of what you need to do. Okay, so if you're building your business through relationships, networking, perhaps it's email outreach, right? Or referrals, partnerships. If you're building your businesses in those ways, should you still use Instagram? Absolutely, it's still a great tool. Should you post on it every single day and try and do lots of reels? Well, you don't have to. It'll probably help to do some, but it's something to be really mindful of is what is that core marketing strategy? And honestly, as a supporting strategy, Instagram is still amazing, right? It's kind of like a portfolio where you can display some of your work, you can show some of yourself, you can bring in your personality, you can show some background. You don't need to have a big growth strategy around growing your audience. You don't need to have thousands and thousands of followers, right? But it can be something that can really support things. Okay, could you use the DM strategy I was talking about earlier? Yeah, you still could. We actually still use it, as I mentioned, right? But it's not the core way that we grow our business. Okay, what you can also think about is things will change as your business grows. Okay, so something that I talk about in my accelerator program, it's the program people do after my initial program, is should we have 2 core things? Right, so as you grow your business, when you start really bringing in, you can maybe bring in support, maybe you can bring in an admin person to help, maybe you can bring in a marketer to help. Yeah, you could consider having 2 core strategies. You could consider having multiple platforms in play, right? You can totally do that, but it's going to come down to resources, and that's where most people are not at right now. Do you have any extra thoughts you wanted to add around this, Jess?
Yeah, I just want to say what I have noticed, the people that do really well with using Instagram as more of a just like static portfolio that they kind of update every now and then. The people that I've seen be really successful with this is muralists, especially here where I live in Dallas. And I think that's because their artwork is in a public space all the time. So they're kind of always making connections, exactly what Logan's talking about, how his business is really based on making connections. I think people who are out in your community, maybe you have a Maybe you do a lot of pop-up shops, maybe you sell products and you do a lot of shops, and so you're constantly conversing with people in person. I think those kinds of businesses where you're kind of naturally in your community a lot would probably be okay using Instagram as like a secondary and not their primary. However, if you're someone like me who's mostly sitting at home doodling on their iPad, not doing a lot of necessarily going out into their community, then maybe Instagram makes more sense for you. So that's just something that I've noticed within the creative field. And it's just some food for thought if you're kind of trying to decide if you're thinking about it.
Love it. So powerful. Before we move on to questions, I'm going to mention one more thing just kind of around these different platforms to think about, but just an acknowledgement of we're going to shift towards question time next. So if you've got any questions that you wanted to ask, ideally mostly around social media, because that's the topic we're in, if there's some other things you want to ask, and we're always open to sharing some other things too. But yeah, feel free to fire them in there. And I know we've already got a few questions to jump into first, which is great. I'm just going to share one more thing around this. So something that I come across, some people that I start working with, and they are like everywhere, right? They're on Instagram, they're on TikTok, they're on Pinterest, they're on Twitter, they're on Facebook, they're on all these different areas. And that is something that a lot of people find very overwhelming, is they're trying to keep up everywhere. And what I generally see is that they're diluting themselves across multiple platforms, and it's not helping them. What you're better to do is focus most of your energy on one platform. Now, should you have accounts, have setups on some of those other platforms? For sure, right? That's a good thing to do. You can, make sure you try and grab your username if you've got a new business. That can be a good thing to do. The second thing is that, can you set up auto posting, right? So Instagram, for example, every time you post, it might automatically post onto your Facebook page, but that kind of isn't going to take you any work. That's just kind of automatically done in the background. That's a good thing to do. But what I sometimes see is people are spending like 50% of their energy on Instagram, 50% of their energy on TikTok, and they're struggling with both. Right? Or they're spending a lot of time on Pinterest. Just think about it as a percentage. You could spend 80% of your energy on one and then 20% on another, which you're kind of learning, testing, trying out, having some extra engagement on, right? So it's going to come down to resources, right? And honestly, I actually do. I've worked with some people who are just so good at multiple platforms, they can manage it. But once again, when I say multiple, I'm talking about like 2 or 3 platforms. They're not everywhere. Right, so it's just something to be very mindful of, is if you're trying to do everything everywhere, you might not be doing enough in one place. Did you have anything extra you wanted to add on that point there, Jess?
No, I think you nailed it. Yeah, no, I think you're totally right. And I think the line, if you're not sure, like if that's you, I think the line is like, if something that we keep talking about, if you are not taking action, then you probably need to reevaluate. Like if the amount of time you're spending on something is preventing you from actually doing the thing, that's probably a sign that you need to step back.
Cool. Love it. Love it. All right. What we're going to do now is we're going to jump into these questions. So we're going to start with questions that are already in the chat, but just really encouraging, if you have a question, just fire it straight into the chat and we'll do our best to cover it in the time that we have before we finish up on the hour. Cool. All right. So there's a question here around, just jumping in the chat here. Jelena asked, what are big clients looking for on Instagram or Reels? So like, what is it they're specifically looking for? And Jess, you might have some thoughts around this as well. First thing I'll share is it's going to depend on who those big clients are. And this is something that many of you that work with, some of you that work with me here, like that's why we dive into target markets early on. So it's going to come down to, okay, who are those big clients specifically and what are they interested in, right? So I know that's kind of what you're asking, but it's firstly about who are the target markets, because there's not just the general people like seeing these sorts of things. Do you want to add some more specifics, Jess, around the sorts of things that you're posting that you're seeing really works for those bigger clients?
Absolutely. So what I will say for lettering and illustration, this is going to depend on your field. I would say for lettering and illustration, they are probably looking for a consistent style. If they look at your Instagram and they get it like that, like, oh, I get that person's style, like nailed it. That is the quickest way to get their attention, because then they'll know what to hire you for. Clients sometimes need to be led into what it is that you want to do, right? So if they go on your feed and they see that you do a bunch of t-shirt designs, like that's your, that's something that you do a lot, like 80% of your stuff is t-shirt designs. They'll be like, great, this person does t-shirt designs. So, that this is like a huge, bigger discussion, but basically do the work you want to get hired for, because that's what clients will assume that's what you do. A great example of this is I started doing Instagram gifts for stories just for fun, because I was almost like jumping on a bandwagon. It just seemed like a lot of lettering artists were doing it at the time. And so I started doing some literally just for fun, posted them on Pinterest, posted them on Instagram. I got like millions, literally over 100 million views on Giphy, on the gifts that I made. And I have since been hired to create gifts for 3 clients, for something that I did for fun. And it's because they saw it on my Instagram and they saw it on my Pinterest. And, talking about the long game again, like you'd think like, okay, like Instagram story stickers, gifts, like that's kind of interesting, but you'd be surprised the clients that actually you could get from this. One of the clients that I got from this was Target, which you will see today is going to be posted on Instagram. Some gifts that I made for Latinx Heritage Month. So what you show clients is what they're going to want to hire you for. So kind of to answer the question, you kind of have to tell them. And also I think for lettering and illustration, they're looking for a specific style. If they understand your style quickly, you're going to be more likely to be hired by certain brands. If you're a graphic designer or a web designer or UX UI designer, I think that's a completely different thing, because that's not really about style. That's, I think, more about understanding typography, layouts, the general design principles. I think that's a little bit different. So I won't speak to that because that's not really my expertise. But I will say, if you're here, you're a specific, you're in a niche, probably your style is going to be what they're looking for.
Love it. Fantastic. So good. So what we're going to jump into next is the question from Sam here around DMing folks, right? So DMing folks, what do you say to them? What do you ask, right? And just thinking about, maybe they're getting lots of DMs, maybe it's really competitive, like totally hear you on those things. First thing, I'm going to just give you a couple of words that you can use. One of them is curious, right? You can literally say, hey, so good to connect with you. Look, I'd be really curious to hear X, Y, Z. I'd be really curious to hear what the challenges you're having in your business are right now, or what your challenges are around hiring freelancers. Right? I'd be really curious to hear, do you have any projects you're currently working on that you're looking for people on? Right, so you can kind of use this as a light way. Now, in the DMs, there's kind of a difference between like a direct sales message versus a more indirect one. So a direct one is like, hey, so great to connect with you. Awesome. Hey, just curious, have you got any work at the moment? That's quite direct. Can you do it? Yeah, you can, right? Are you better to do maybe a more informal approach? Yeah, maybe, but it's going to come down to experimentation. All right, so what I do encourage you to do is try some different strategies. The other thing is that one strategy around how you connect with people through DMs that works now versus what works in 6 months' time or 6 months ago may change. Okay, so what we've seen in my business is initially we were connecting with people and just pretty much upfront asking them what are the challenges that they have. And we found that just kind of stopped working. People stopped replying. Don't really know why. It just wasn't the thing. So now actually we're more connecting, curious around, hey, tell us more about your business. I'd love to hear more, right? So there might be more general thing, or even we've even been trying like, hey, whereabouts are you based? I'd be curious here, getting conversation going. And then if they're interested in continuing that conversation, we can dig deeper. Okay, so just within that, Sam, is like try some different things, experiment, try some different strategies, try indirect versus direct, and it's going to come down to numbers, right? Because if you spend all day trying to figure out how to message one person, then it means you're only messaging one person, and the reply rates might be relatively low in the first place. You just need to message more people, right? And I know, Sam, you'll be like, yeah, I hear you, Logan. It's a numbers game, right? It's something we talk a lot about in the coaching as well. Cool. All right, let's keep moving through these questions here as well. So, what can be posting strategy from sharing updates of work, a day in life type videos to motivating visitors to purchase? What can be a posting strategy from sharing updates of work, a day in life video, motivating visitors to purchase? Is that the same thing? Okay. So the key around posting strategy can sometimes be just to try having a variety of different things. And one of the big mistakes that I see is that people try and they're on either end of the spectrum. One end of the spectrum is that every post they do or reel is like a sales post. Hey, this is for sale. Hey, do you want to work with me? Hey, like that's very direct, right? So they're doing too many of those. At the other end is people never post something like that. So therefore you don't really know, is this person even in business? Is this a hobby? right? It's okay to have something a bit more direct. Once again, it will depend on the business you're in, stage you're in, those things, but really only 1 in 10 or maybe even 1 in 20 posts or reels should be something more sales driven, right? I'm available for hire. I'm available for work. I'm currently got some availability, or here's this thing that I'm selling, right? 1 in 10, 1 in 20. If you're doing more than that, it might mean that your audience is just switching off. They're muting you. They're getting annoyed. They're unfollowing you. If you're not doing any of that, well, you might be finding that you're struggling to grow your business, and you're just, people aren't aware that you're in business in the first place. Do you have anything that you wanted to add to that, Jessica?
I just want to actually tackle the second question, like what to post if there's not much new work being made regularly. I highly encourage you to repost your work often. Best case scenario, you've got about 1 to 5% of your audience that sees a post at any given moment. So that means you can regularly post the same thing probably 10 times before somebody sees it. So do not worry about people getting sick of you. They probably didn't see it in the first place. And a great way to do this is, like, maybe it's not exactly the same post. Maybe you got a piece of art. So like maybe it's like this poster that I've got back here that I made, right? So maybe I post it as a flat artwork one time. Then maybe I post a reel that's a time-lapse video of me drawing it. Then maybe I post a picture of it like mocked up as a poster like it is right now. There's 3 post ideas right there. And then you repost those twice, there's 9 posts right there, right? So just think about repurposing things, and do not be afraid to share things over and over again.
I love that. I love that. So powerful. So what we'll jump into next there is basically just Jonah sharing, usually do you get your clients through Instagram, or do you also do some direct prospecting through LinkedIn and email as well? So we'll get Jess to maybe share her perspective on this first, and then I might add some more just because she's in that specific area. So let's hear from you on that, Jess.
Yeah, so the vast majority of my clients come through Instagram, and that actually includes my biggest clients. So Target, Adobe, HarperCollins, Inkbox, Cosmopolitan, those big names all found me on Instagram. That is why it is my core strategy, as Logan was talking about before, versus like a secondary or supplemental, because that's where I have seen the most interest and the most of my client work. That is where I put the most amount of my effort. Yes, I have done cold emailing. I don't really use LinkedIn. That just hasn't really worked for me. I tried it for a little bit. It really just didn't work for me. But yes, I've done cold emailing, and yes, I have gotten client work through cold emailing as well. And I have a really targeted approach that I kind of do that with. I don't do it a lot because, again, most of my success has been with Instagram. So I don't spend hours and hours and hours and hours doing cold emailing because the ROI isn't the same for me. So yes, to answer your question.
I think that's such a great perspective. And once again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying before around, yes, core strategy versus supporting strategy and how that really looks. If you are doing everything that you can, if you're posting the reels, if you're doing the work on Instagram and you've got some extra energy, yeah, there's other places you can post, right? Absolutely. Maybe it could be LinkedIn. Maybe it could be doing email outreach. Maybe it could be on Pinterest, right? Yeah, Pinterest, absolutely. That's a platform that people are using. But once again, don't fall into that trap of like suddenly you're spending 50% of your time on Instagram, 50% of your time on Pinterest, and you're doing neither of them really to what is required, right? So that's something that we've just got to be aware of that. Some people use slightly different strategies in terms of going, hey, 80% of their energy is on Instagram, 20% is on other stuff, right? So the other stuff could be, right, Pinterest, even hearing from Jess saying, she does some cold emailing. Absolutely, it can be a great strategy to build your business. But if you are doing Pinterest, cold email, LinkedIn, and you're not doing the 80% for Instagram, then you might not be using your time effectively. Once again, this is actually about time and how much time and energy and resources you have. It's a really important thing. Hey, we are going to try and cover off a couple more questions. Just wanted to remind you again, those of you that are keen to maybe jump on or apply for one of those freebie coaching calls, I'm going to put that link again in the survey. We'll put in the email again if this is in the recording. So fill that in. Takes 5 to 10 minutes to fill in, and then would love to, hopefully you might be one of those 5 people to connect with. Cool. So we're going to jump into a couple more, and then we'll be wrapping up soon as well. Okay, so Emily, so is asking for reels. What tools do you recommend when putting together reels? So do you have any extra recommendations around that, Jess, beyond using Instagram itself to put together reels? Are you using anything else?
Yes, InShot is a great app. I believe it's free. There is a paid version, but all you have to do for the free version is like watch an ad before you export or something like that. InShot, I recommend. I also recommend if you are a designer, if you're very like Adobe focused, like a lot of us are, Rush is actually really great. It's like a very pared down version of Premiere Pro. If you are into like really, really good editing, I use Premiere Pro a lot, especially if I'm doing a time lapse and I want to shrink it down to a Reels amount of time and it's taken me like 40 minutes. You really can't do that in Rush, but you can do it in Premiere Pro. So Premiere Pro, if you're investing a lot of time and energy and you already know how to use it, highly recommend. Rush, if you just want to do a quick version. InShot, if you want to do it on your phone. Those are my favorite tools.
Love it. So, so good. Fantastic. All right. We're going to do one more question. And Sydney, I will message you around your one. So look, Phil, how big of a following did you build before you started seeing regular work coming in through Instagram? Curious about your journey from where you are, Jess. So do you want to jump into that one there?
Yeah, I don't have numbers off the top of my head. I would say it's a lot less because, okay, so right now I'm at 10.9K followers. I grew about 1K last year, but this year the growth has been like really, really, really slow just because algorithm changes and I've taken breaks and stuff like that. It's less about the numbers of followers and more about the consistency of what you're posting. So I just want to like put that up front. Like it's not about 10,000 followers. It's not about 1,000 followers. It's more about how consistent are you and how much work are you putting into it. So I don't have like a number for you that like, oh, when I hit 5K, that's like when everything changed, because that's not really how I ever thought about it. And that's not really how I ever think about it now. I will say I had work coming in before I officially launched my business, like my side business from my full-time job. I'm trying to say, well, okay, so I do have regular work coming in, but I also still supplement with side work. So I'm not sitting here with like overwhelmed with like all the big name clients that I gave you guys. That's over a couple of years. That's not like this month or something. So it still takes a while. I mean, I'm still new to this business. Like I said, I just celebrated my 1-year anniversary. I'm still growing. I'm still learning a lot. I would still love to take on more client work. I'd love to see bigger clients. I'm still working on that stuff. So I'm actually still not just doing lettering and illustration. My background was in graphic design, so I still take on graphic design clients to just pay the bills. That's just part of it. And that's something Logan and I had to talk about, me having kind of a mindset shift and thinking that I was just going to be like doing lettering and illustration all the time. And it turns out like that just hasn't happened for me yet for whatever reason. So I just keep going. Like I said, Instagram's a core strategy for me. So I keep using it. I keep building on it. And the more that I've done it, the more that I've seen clients pay attention to me. So that's kind of the short version. If you want a longer version of my journey, feel free to DM me on Instagram, see Jess Letter, and I will talk more in depth about it if you have more questions about it.
I love that. And Jess, we might get you to just post your tag just in the chat so some people can follow you.
Yes.
Before we wrap up. So I'll post mine in as well. So you can follow me there too. Final one thing, and then we're going to finish. I would love everyone to share one takeaway from today. What is one thing that you've learned? What is one thing that you've found interesting? If you want to just put one thing in the chat, that would be awesome. I know we've covered lots of different things, but we always love to hear what is it that's been useful, interesting. What have you found fascinating before we wrap up in the next minute or so? What has been challenging? that's
I know, guys.
Reels, right?
Yeah. Batch creating, repost, consistency, yes. Awesome. Don't spread yourself too thin, yes. Oh, never thought to follow social media marketers. I love following social media marketers. They do all the work for you. Oh, goodness. Okay, great. Learned, accepted. I need to go with the changes around social media. Yeah, if you want to use it, if you want it to be part of your core strategy, go with the flow. That's part of running a business. Yeah, I love that. Great. I'm so glad that you guys have learned so much. This is so exciting. Like I said, I'm such a huge Instagram and social media marketing nerd. If y'all have any questions, like feel free to DM me. I can like talk about this forever. Yeah, I love it. I think it's so fun. I think like if like lettering and illustration doesn't work out, you'll probably see me shift over to social media marketer just because I really love it.
Amazing. So many great things there.
Suck it up,
Popping through in the chat.
Buttercup. Suck it up, Buttercup. Yeah, sorry. Sorry. Running a
Amazing.
business isn't all easy all the time. Sorry.
I love it. Hey, so great to connect with you all, and so great to work together for this call with you, Jess, as well. It's been amazing, and just
Yes.
honestly, it's been a blast. I love how everyone's been leaning in, asking good questions. So we are going to wrap it up, but obviously keep in touch, and might be connecting with you via some of the surveys as well.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time out of your day.
Awesome. Take care, everyone. See yous. Take
Bye,
care.
guys.